Says it's recording.
Good. All right. Very good. All right. So let's get right into it.
Mgtow.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Probably not many ladies. We're going to discuss tonight. Dan and I were talking about the millennials, and those poor bastards. You know, they've really been handed a bag of dog do with what the
Mhm.
generations before them have left them for a country in many ways. So they're starting to come up with different acronyms. They're starting to question things, right? Which is a good thing. Instead of just blindly following previous generations into what their parents and grandparents before them have done, they're now starting to say, okay, you're giving me a bag of goods.
Mhm.
I don't want to buy into this, right? Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, or the other way I would flip it around is we're Gen Xers, right?
I have no idea. I don't follow this stuff.
Well, I believe we are anyway. So my point is, we really didn't question what the boomers, our parents, whatever, handed over to us, right? We we were indoctrinated, in my opinion, and
It's
in
because the
such a
system. It's because the system was still working.
right. That's a good point. We were indoctrinated in such a way that um, we didn't ask questions because it was always thought of, and we were taught that each successive generation does, if not just as well, most of the time, if not all the time, better than the previous generation. Hence, their parents, for example, right? That is clearly no longer the case. That American
Dream.
model, dream, whatever you want to call it, paradigm did carry on for a long time, right? Basically, after World War II, up through, what do you want to guess?
Well, we're not going to go down this path because that will
1980 or
definitely
90?
take us off in a tangent.
No, absolutely. But so but suffice to say that model, that paradigm, whatever, is broken.
Yep.
And the
All I wanted to
millennials, to
do
their
is introduce
credit,
that there's
yep,
a reason. There's a
yep,
reason why these movements or these changes in the way people view things are happening. Okay.
yes,
They see that the old paradigm isn't working. So now they're creating a new paradigm. We can go all day long about
absolutely,
why
yeah,
or how.
yeah,
Okay.
no, agreed.
Okay. So one of the things that we have talked about is what's called Mgtow or Mgtow. And most people don't know what it is. Dan didn't know what it was when I asked him about it. And it's Mgtow, and it means men going their own way. And what does that mean? No, it doesn't mean men becoming homosexuals, okay,
Hmm.
or something like that. It
Hmm.
basically refers to a movement where men are rejecting tradition. And tradition basically says go to school,
Hmm.
get a job, get married,
Hmm.
buy a house, have children in whatever order you want. Now men are realizing, okay, well the way the laws are structured today, if I get married and I get divorced, I get raped and pillaged by the court system. So what is the benefit of that? And then if you look at the divorce rate, which is 60%, and you could argue if 60% of people are so unhappy that they get divorced, those 40% who remain married, well, perhaps 68% of them are not happy, but they can't get divorced or don't want to get divorced because they have children or money issues or family issues that hold them together, and they decide to stay together for the greater benefit of whatever it is. So if you factor that 60% out of that 40 in, then that means 84% of marriages are unsuccessful based
Well,
on, let me finish, Dan, please, are
mm,
based on what people have. When people get married, I think most people are thinking it's going to lead to happiness. and it's going to lead to achieving objectives together in harmony. Whereas I think what most people find out is it's not what they signed up for. Okay. And so if you were going to invest in a stock or a business or in anything with your hard earned money, and somebody said, well, son, it's a 16% chance, most people would run away from those odds of success.
Mm.
So if we just look at what this Wikipedia is, because I've never looked at the wiki page, so I figured we'd start with that. Okay, obviously, this is hilarious. Men going their own way is an anti-feminist, misogynist, mostly online community advocating for men to separate themselves from women and from a society which they believe has been destroyed by feminism. The community is a part of the manosphere, a collection of anti-feminist websites. This is ridiculous. Okay, well, we're going to
well, you know, without digging too deep into that, I mean, apparently the way this was written, apparently somebody believes this, right? Somebody put this out there based on something more than hearsay, we would hope. But the point is, one thing I was going to ask was, you said first marriages, it's 60%. Is that what you look?
I rounded. I think it's the high 50s.
Okay, all right. Because
so
interestingly,
I just rounded it to 60%.
Well, it's funny because I said that I had a discussion with my mom about a month ago. I don't know how it came up, but it came up. And I said it was between 50 and 60%, the last I knew, on first marriages. She said she looked it up. And it was,
I didn't hear what you said.
I thought it was between 50 and 60% on first marriages. So take the mid number, 55-ish. My mother then looked it up and said, no, it's only 39%. So let's say it's 39 or 55, you know, still, you know, between that, you know, you're still, you know, pushing 50%, right? If you take the mid number. So basically it's a coin toss, to your point, right? And I've also heard through other means, therapists and something, folks like that they said somewhere in the vicinity, and they came up with a figure close to what you said earlier, 84%. They said around 80% of all relationships eventually fail.
Makes sense. Because most relationships in our lives are temporary. Because people change over time. People change. Your goals change. Your values change. You change as a person. If you look at who you were 30 years ago, you're not the same person. And you and your significant other are probably going to change differently in most cases. That's why so many people who get married, they stay married for the children. And then when the children are gone, they look at each other and be like, who are you? Mm. The reality is that when we're born into this world and when we die and we leave this world, we're alone. Even if you're surrounded by people, you're still going in and out alone. Okay. And I've often said to you, when you're on an airplane and there's trouble on an airplane and that oxygen mask drops down, what do they say? They don't say, please help everybody before you help yourself. No, they say, make sure you put your own mask on first before you help anybody else. Because if you're dead, you can't help anybody.
Well, yeah.
And that's what Mgtow basically says. It says, it does not say Mgtow does not advocate hating women. What it says is it advocates loving yourself, putting yourself first. And how many times have we seen where often the man of the family becomes basically just the breadwinner, and that's all they're looked at in a family? The provider.
Well, and that is true, but that's probably been since the beginning of time too. Pretty much, for the most part. Once a man decides to marry a woman and then particularly have children as well, um, he takes the back seat in a lot of ways. He takes the front seat in some ways. The main way that he takes the front seat is by, or used to up until a certain point, being the provider. Now, that's not necessarily the case anymore either, particularly in America, because, most families are not even intact. Most of them are disintegrated. So you don't even have a father at home, but that might be going down another path or whatever. But this might be what some of the people in this movement as well see also, like to your earlier remarks about not just swallowing something hook, line, and sinker because that's how it was done before, right? It's
And that's
actually,
why, and that's
yeah.
why it's so criticized, Dan, because it's not the traditional path. And so that's going to get especially these women groups that probably wrote that Wikipedia page are threatened by it.
Well, it's interesting that they're threatened by it because,
well, that's my interpretation. Okay.
It appears that way. So, and we could be wrong for sure. But what's interesting is that those same women that are threatened by this probably, have a lot of their roots without them even knowing it, going back to the late '60s with the likes of ladies like Gloria Steinem and stuff, staunch till this day, avid feminists, right? And you can argue both sides of the fence. Has it been good for women? Maybe in some ways, but in other ways, I would argue too, it's been detrimental as well. Because we now have families, even for the ones that are intact, which are the gross minority now. It's a situation where, at least when we were growing up, and this has nothing to do with sexism in my mind, roles were more defined. Um, Women and mothers and whatnot had defined roles, as did the men, and it worked pretty decently, I thought, or pretty well. Now, was it perfect? No, of course it wasn't. But hey, look, here's the bottom line. You don't have to be a PhD and or Dr. Spock in child rearing to know that once you have kids, for example, as well. There's got to be a main person for the kids around on a regular basis. And that's not the case in America anymore either. Right? We started 20, 30 years ago. What do we do now? It's the norm. You take your kid early in the morning, you wake them up at 5 o'clock, 5:30, you get them over to daycare by 7 in the morning, and they stay with complete strangers 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Right.
Yeah, and that is allowed. And the fact that families are not traditional anymore now gives more merit to a man saying, why am I getting married? There's really no benefit to marriage today for a man.
Well, it depends
if you look
what point.
At marriage as a legal contract in the eyes of the law, then there really is no benefit for a man to get married.
Well, I was going to say, it depends on your point of view. If you're looking from a man's point of view, which obviously you are, and I am obviously,
that's what the Mgtow movement is, Dan.
Exactly.
It's not a woman movement.
Yeah, no, understood. So, and I just want to make that clear, just in case there are some women watching this who decide to watch this. I mean,
and there are women who have their own version of Mgtow who decide it's a lot easier to stay single.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it's not for everybody. You shouldn't just blindly do it just because your folks did and their folks did and whatever. For a lot of reasons, on a personal level, you've got to figure out for yourself that whether it's for you or not, and that institution isn't for everybody.
Nobody does the homework required to find out if it's for them or not. Are you kidding me?
Well,
most people are like, we're in love and we're going to be in love for the rest of our lives, and then whammo. For example, how many people actually run a credit report on each other before they get married?
I would say 2 out of 100. I don't know.
Yeah. 2
1
out of
out of
100?
1 out of 100.
2
I'm
out
being
of 1,000,
optimistic.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
yeah, no,
financial is one of the leading causes of divorce. But
it is.
people don't run credit reports on each other and discuss those things.
Well, they don't, and there's a basic reason for that in my mind. They're not taught properly by their parents, for example. I mean, nobody raises these things when they're growing up and stuff. Things that you want to consider in a mate and stuff, right? I mean, we have
Or how about a
certifications.
prenup? How about a prenup? How many people actually have a prenup?
Well, here's where I was going with this. We have certifications for everything under the sun. You got to be certified to be a plumber. You got to be certified to be an electrician, deservedly so. You could burn a house down, whatever. Certified for this, that, and everything else. But when it comes to probably the most important decision in your life, if not one of the most important, top 2 or 3, what's the prerequisite for getting somebody up to speed on that? To your point, and the major things to consider. There really aren't any. And it's obvious to me that as a whole, as a society as a whole, we're all to blame. And why do I say that? Well, if you have a 60% KO rate the first time around, that tells us as a whole, again, aggregate figures, that as a whole, we're not doing a good job. And if we're not doing a good job, then we're grossly missing the mark. And why are we missing that mark? Because we're not obviously at a certain stage of our own kids' development or whatever, preparing them accordingly. We're just kind of throwing them out there and they just feel in their way. It's clearly not working. It's not working. So then people go around the first time around and then they say it doesn't work out. And then they say, what the hell, I'll give it a whirl for a second time. But then the problem they don't understand is it's even worse statistically the second time around.
Yeah, you told me it was 85%, right?
That's around 70%. And then the third time around, it's about 80% plus. So basically after the really after the first time, you're really taking a chance. The second time, if you want to go for a second shot, okay, great. But if it doesn't work out after the second time, definitely throw in the towel.
The second
you
time
got an
around,
80-90% loss
the
rate.
second time around, people recognize when it's not going to work. Before, it's like anything, the first time around, it's a new experience.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm just trying to say that I guess the grass isn't greener. That's not necessarily the answer. And if you didn't curb a lot of your problems before then and handle some of your own baggage, it's just going to crop up again.
Yeah. Plus, societal pressure really was a big factor for people getting married in the past, because 50 years ago, if your girlfriend got pregnant, you married her. Today, you either have an abortion, many people do, which I'm not advocating, or people just have baby mamas now. And it's commonplace for a woman to have 3 kids with 3 different guys.
And if it's not outright commonplace, it's darn near it. It's semi-commonplace. And that's a touchy subject, though. I mean, there's people that when you say that, you're probably touching a nerve. That they could come back to you and arguably say, I'm being devil's advocate now, Dave. How dare you? I mean, what are you, judging me? You suggesting how I should live? And I would say, well, no, we definitely don't want to get judgmental. We're not necessarily suggesting how you should live. However, what I would say is,
it's not.
Well, no, here's what I would say is all you need to do is look around, use your basic power of observation, look at society as a whole, and look at how things are going. That's what I say. And you tell me how they're going. And we all know the answer if you're brutally honest. They're not going very well, particularly in America, on so many levels. And that's another example of a level. So if you know it's not going well, if you're truthful with yourself, then you already know the answer. You probably shouldn't be doing that without trying to be judgmental and make somebody feel bad. I mean, mistakes happen. That's for sure. We're all prone and guilty of mistakes. If you're a human being, you're fallible. right? We all agree to that. You, me, all of us. So I don't want to get judgmental, but at the same time, we've accepted things, to your point, what you're suggesting as a whole, as a society, that clearly aren't helping us. They're breaking us down. That's what I would say. But our leaders,
Well, let me ask
whatever.
you a question. What is, in your opinion, what do you get through marriage that you would not get through being single and dating somebody? It's almost like it's. Have you ever heard of how a Muslim gets divorced? A man can just go to a woman and say, "I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you," and then they're now divorced.
Okay.
In essence, that's all a guy with a Mgtow could do for a girlfriend, right? I divorce you, I divorce you, or she could do it to him.
Not necessarily. Common law marriage. I mean, if you're
Well,
together, what?
I'm not. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm talking. I'm talking a guy who's dating a woman, not somebody who's been
Yeah.
living with her for 10 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The proverbial, yeah, you could do that. Thanks. It's been real. Arrivederci. Ciao.
Yeah. Whereas some men, if they don't pay their alimony, do they ever go to jail?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, there's deadbeat dads. Yeah. If they get really behind in child support and stuff like that, the state will come after you. And if you've set it up through the Department of Revenue, depending on your state and where you live, it depends on the couple. Like some couples make an agreement, like a handshake amongst themselves. That look, as long as the husband or former husband stays up to date, things are good. We won't go through the state officially through the Department of Revenue, but most or a good portion go through the official process of having it deducted out of his pay and stuff like that. But if he gets behind, now you've got the state on top of your back, right?
Well, the guy, the black guy in South Carolina who was shot like 5 times while running away from the white cop in Charleston.
Okay.
He was pulled over and he had a warrant for his arrest because he was
Delinquent.
overdue on his
Yeah.
payments.
Yeah. Child support.
Child support.
Yep.
And that's what flagged him in the system, and that's why the cop shot him, because he was running away for that.
Well, okay, yeah.
Well,
Be careful
my point
how
is,
you phrase
my
that.
point is it put him into the system. And I'm not saying
Exactly.
that if you have a child, you don't take care of your child, but I'm saying it now puts it in equal footing with felons in the system, right? The cops
Yeah.
pull you over. They see that you have a warrant for your arrest, and now all of a sudden, you get the rough hand of the law.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
So what is it in marriage that you think marriage will offer that a Mgtow would not offer? I don't think there's anything. Me personally. I think if you get married and you're a man, you have a screw loose.
Okay,
That's my opinion. That's
Okay,
my opinion.
Okay, that is your opinion. But to say somebody has a screw loose because they get married is
No, what I'm saying is because what I mean
ridiculously
by that,
and
because
overly simplistically harsh.
No, it's not, because it means
That's your opinion. That's your opinion.
My opinion, it means they did not sit down and do all the thinking out long term about the potential pitfalls of marriage. Like I said, if you're looking at an investment, if you're going in thinking you hit a home run and then you end up a nightmare. How many times have you heard guys say, "Oh my God, I'm dying here. Oh, I can't take this." Almost every married guy I know has been pulling their hair out at some point or another, if not all the time.
Yeah, but it's the same thing even in a long-term relationship, okay? Whether you're married or not, it could be the same thing. It could be gut-wrenching at times, and you can ride the roller coaster. I mean, the bottom line
The whole point is a long-term relationship with a Mgtow, you say, "Thanks, you brought the couch, I brought the chair. Bye."
But it's not always that simple. I mean, what if the main purpose of marriage is to live in monogamy,
No,
to
let's
develop.
not start introducing religious issues into this.
I'm not getting religious, but that's the main purpose of it, right? To build the family unit,
Does
which
that
is your
guarantee
basic,
monogamy?
which is your basic building block of any society, particularly once you start having children. So you're telling me it's good to have children out of wedlock? I don't agree. I think it's a horrendous idea. We're doing it already. We've been doing it for 30, 40 years. Look at our society. Look at how it's being torn apart at the fabric. That's my case in point.
So your answer is the only advantage of marriage is when you have children.
That's a major part of it. Yeah. If you want the truth and reality, put yourself in the children's shoes. Okay. You ask
why
any.
would somebody get married a second time or a third time?
Why would they get married a second time? Yeah.
Are they a glutton for punishment?
Potentially, but hopefully not. But hopefully not. I mean, if you do it right, maybe you'll avoid that. I mean, nobody likes to get smacked around, but the reality is life is, and you know this, in a lot of cases, a risk. The minute you get up every day and decide to walk out the door, there's some risk there. You know, the tree could fall on your head. You can get in your car, drive on the way to work, a freaking truck runs you over.
So what do most people do to mitigate the risk?
I don't know. You tell me. What do they do?
They usually take out insurance policies, right?
Okay.
So that would be taking steps to make sure
maybe
it doesn't fall on your head.
Maybe that should be the new norm then. Maybe everything should be status, standard operating procedure, then a prenup with everything going forward.
What about a 10-year contract on marriages? You get to the end of the contract and now both parties have to opt in, or you just shake hands and you walk away.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Maybe there's potential for that, but how do you factor in if you've got 2 or 3 kids now?
Well, that's factored in ahead of time. These are all contracts you agree to before you go into it.
Okay.
That's the whole point of a prenup. That should be legally required for any marriage. Is you sign on saying, okay, I agree to split 50% of the income with her. She agrees to split 50, whatever the number is.
Okay. And that's all fine and dandy, but here's the issue though, and this is something you're not taking into account. You're simply looking at it from a legal and financial point of view, and those definitely have weight and bearing in it.
No, I'm looking at it from an emotional point of view as well. A man can do very well, and I'm not going to speak for a woman. I'm sure a woman can as well. A man can live a perfectly satisfying life being legally single. It doesn't mean that they're alone at night eating a box of noodles. It doesn't mean that they're crying in their beer because they're all lonely.
Okay.
It means they have time to do the things that they want to do with their life.
The reason why we're in this mess as a whole, in my opinion, is that there was a time when the state just didn't look at it as a legal and financial contract, which is how they primarily look at it. Not even primarily, I would say 100% now. They look at marriage as a legal and financial contract. But what really marriage is a covenant, not just a contract. Okay. It's a covenant between 2 human beings where you're taking 2 people literally and what's the other word? I'm looking figuratively, right? Where you're bonding 2 people, right? So a boy shall grow up, become a man, leave his parents, and bond with his wife, and they become one. They're becoming a covenant, okay? Not only at a flesh level, but a spiritual and soul level, okay? That's the main purpose. And our society, by the way, including the court systems, used to look at it that way up until about the late 70s, until no-fault divorce came into play. Once that came into play, okay, they threw everything that I just said out the door, looking at it from a covenant perspective and more from the church perspective and more from the eyes of God perspective. All bets were off at that point. They just threw that all out the window. Okay. And since then, it's been looked at, okay, as just a contract. As far as the state's concerned, marriage is nothing more than a legally binding contract, period. End of story. Doesn't matter if there's kids in the mix, doesn't matter about the feelings, doesn't matter about the covenant, so on and so forth. They could care less.
Well, unfortunately, the state makes
and their actions prove it.
The state makes a ruling and you have to pay it.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's legally binding.
That's right. And the state has proven it through the cottage industry that it's developed the last 40 or 50 years. And what is that cottage industry? We've got a massive multi-billion-dollar divorce industry. Divorce lawyers don't get paid unless families get ripped apart. And I don't mean to beat up on divorce lawyers. They do serve a purpose. I mean, when the stuff gets that bad and the stuff hits the fan, you do need a professional, okay? But the reality is they don't come into play until the stuff hits the fan and families get torn apart, right?
All the more reason that the current young people have the courage to look at it and say, no, thanks. No, thanks. I can't jump the Niagara. I can't jump across the Grand Canyon. Can't do it.
Well, it could potentially be that if you're not prepared and if you jump in blindly.
Things change, Dan. Okay, you're divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's zero chance that you thought when you got married that it could have turned into what it turned into.
No, I wouldn't have said zero chance. Well, but very, very minute. Yeah, of course. Nobody goes into it thinking otherwise. Yeah. And the thing I learned is it takes two to marry, but only takes one to leave.
Bingo. Hence, that is a bad contract to sign. Who would ever sign that contract where you're like, okay, Dan, you're going to put your whole life savings into it. You're going to work in this business your whole life, but all I got to do is say I'm out. And what's the percentage? 70% of all 70% of all marriages are initiated. 70% of all divorces are initiated by the woman.
Exactly, but that never was the case until about 30 or 40 years ago when they signed on to a bag of you know what, in my opinion. Okay, blindly.
It doesn't matter what happened 30 or 40 years ago. These people,
it does because
no, it doesn't because
yes, it does. I don't agree with you.
25-year-old.
That's why we're in the position we're in. You always have to look at history and trace it back to its root cause.
It doesn't.
You don't get to where you're at.
A bullet in your head, you're
without
dead.
A root cause. You don't get to where you're at without a root cause.
It doesn't matter now.
It does matter. It does matter.
It really doesn't.
It absolutely matters.
Because you
yes,
can't
it
change
does.
it.
That's not true. That's not true. In the early 60s, we took the 10 commandments out of the public purview. That could be put back if we had the will and the gumption to do it. In 1973, we had Roe versus Wade. That's a law on the books. We could reverse that law if we saw fit. I'm not necessarily advocating that.
Why aren't you advocating that? You coward.
Well, at a personal level.
Pussy. Okay. You really are. Take the skirt off.
Okay.
Oh, I don't want to offend anybody.
I advocated at a personal level, okay? At a personal level, okay? But we have a society that doesn't advocate it. Okay?
It's okay to say that there should be a law, Dan.
Okay.
We're not a law.
I don't believe in the law, but the bulk of our society does. I'm outnumbered. That's all I'm saying, okay?
You don't have to go around with your head hanging.
My head's not hanging at all. I have my beliefs and I stick to them, and that's it. That's all I can do. That's strike two. Strike three is late 70s, no fault divorce. Okay. And I won't call it strike four because I don't want to insult people, but gay marriage, in 2015.
Yeah, now they get to pay alimony. Good job, guys. You fools.
Well, I'm not going to call them fools, but be
well,
careful what you
do. Like the big thing.
Be careful what you bargain for.
I remember
be
the
careful
argument,
what you bargain
like,
for.
oh, if my boyfriend gets sick and then the family can kick me out and take the house away, all you got to do is create a legal contract. That's it. Create a legal contract, and you're protected. You don't have to get married.
Well, it's easy for you to say because you've never, for whatever the reason, taken that step, and that's fine. That's fine. So you can kind of be Monday morning quarterback at this point.
You can call it that if you want. It's not
Well,
like I haven't skirted the issue. But
I'm just
I
saying.
just kept staring at that abyss, and you can say that it has things to do with the history. Doesn't matter, because what you have to decide today is what the laws are today. Okay, and for me,
Understood.
And for me,
Understood.
For me to go down a path that is so skewed towards losing, where you lose, you build up 20 years of wealth and it's gone.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah.
I know people who had to go back to work after they were retired because they got divorced.
Yes, but it does take two to tango, though. You're both responsible. You're both responsible. It's a two-way street.
But so, that's what I'm saying. If you want to basically hold a grenade and say, honey, just pull the pin. That's sorry. I'm not saying, that's insane.
Okay. That's one way to look at it. That's your opinion. I mean, that's not the case for everybody, but it is for a lot.
I die for you. How many songs talk about dying for your baby, or ooh, I die for you. I mean, would you really? Okay. She'll rip your heart out, and then she'll rip your balls out, and then she'll take all your money. Ooh.
Well, it depends on, I guess. Well, it depends on who you're talking about. Yeah, maybe in some cases. Car. But you're suggesting a blanket statement across the board. I mean, I'm
not saying there aren't happily married people. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that there's probably a lot more people who were left by the roadside littered, and it might be because they didn't know what they were getting to. It might be that they didn't do credit reports on each other, or they didn't do medical tests on each other, or they didn't discuss what the role in their relationship was going to be.
But there was probably a time when a lot of that stuff that you just rattled off wasn't necessary. I would agree with you now. It's probably more necessary than ever before because of how our society, for lack of a better word, has evolved or progressed. I would argue devolved and regressed. That's what I would argue. We got a society basically falling apart. Okay, so I'm not debating you there. Okay, it's a effing shit show for the most. American society, effing shit show. It is. If you want to be real, if you want to put it in colloquial terms,
want to be real.
And don't put it in rhetorical speak, it's a shit show. I'm being real with you. It's a shit show. That's my opinion.
Well, nobody.
And we don't have the balls, and we don't have the gumption, and we don't have the backbone to stand up and do what's right, because we now have a society too where you're going to be politically correct for everything. Heaven forbid, you want to back your position, because you believe in something and somebody doesn't agree with you. They're going to go, no. They're not even going to listen to you, or they're just going to ridicule you, right? And our politicians are a perfect example of it. The friggin' Democrats and the Republicans won't even talk to each other. Well, who are they not to talk to each other? How dare they? They're supposed to do the will and the work of the people, and they won't. And they're saying they won't even talk to each other. Who the frig are they to say that?
Well, it's spread into families, supposedly. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know this, but you hear these stories where families don't even have Thanksgiving and Christmas together now because they're supposedly politically divided. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, Are you really that retarded, people, where you're going to push aside people you love?
Well, it's a polarized society, and I blame our leaders. Our leaders should be saying and doing the opposite. They should be a good leader should reinforce, okay, whether it's at a small team level, with 6 people or 10 people, a good manager, he always reinforces, or she reinforces whatever they can to make the team come together and make them gel.
Common denominators.
Yeah, same thing with the family. And at a national level, I argue that's what a good leader does. But we don't have good leaders anymore. Okay. Instead, they polarize us, they divide us for the sake of trying to conquer us. And if we're stupid enough to allow it to happen,
It's always been
and
that way, Dan.
and well,
They've
uh,
just used they've just
in
used they've just
in
used the
human
Russians or the terrorists to be
in
the
human
polarizing
history
factor.
overall, that's probably true. But there was a time in this country, probably, maybe off and on to an extent, you could argue otherwise. But well, I don't know. I haven't lived for 200 years, so
Well, read the history books,
okay. Well,
right? We had a civil war, for crying out loud. If you want to
yeah.
call it a civil war, it wasn't a civil war, but so
Well, you had Americans fighting Americans. I don't know what the hell else you call it, but I mean, it wasn't fought for slavery, if that's what you're inferring. We get
no, I
that.
wasn't inferring that. No, you had people trying to just break away. So it wasn't a civil war. They weren't trying to take over the government. They were just trying to go live their own lives.
Well, that's true. At the end of the day, it was about
Civil war is
purely
when you're fighting over the same apple.
fighting over resources. That's true. So yeah, they were trying to simply walk away, succeed, and they weren't allowed to. And then they were attacked. That's true, basically.
So I just want to say to all the young men out there, I just want to applaud you to have the courage, because I have to be honest with you, our generation wasn't so brave. We caved and we conformed. And you have to agree with this. We caved and we conformed to what our parents and grandparents and our society expected of us when it wasn't in our best interest.
Well, I would agree that we definitely conformed. Now, you're kind of a little too cynical, in my opinion. But you say we caved. I would give us, a little bit of leeway to say we definitely conformed, because I think that in ignorance,
men don't have a time clock.
Right? In ignorance, we didn't know any better. We didn't know any better because it was ingrained in us and hardwired in us early on, indoctrinated, whatever word you want to use, right? We just thought that was the way, that was the path. That's what we were taught. And I agree with you. I give the millennials credit now to kind of look at the big step back, look at the big picture, kind of step forward, hone in, look at different portions, if you will, of the big picture.
No. It's okay to say no. If
absolutely.
You don't, if
absolutely.
You don't, and that's really what our society does, is a lot of young people have no idea what they're doing with their lives. So they're like, well, I guess I'll go to college. Oh, I guess I'll get married. Oh,
yeah.
I guess I'll have a kid. When these are all steps that lock you into no freedom to change.
Well, yeah, there's some truth to that. I mean,
have the courage to remain free until you know what you want to do.
Yeah. There's truth. I think there's some truth to that. Yeah. Be very clear before you decide to leap off that diving board, I guess. Make sure you have both eyes open. You're totally, cognizant.
Just because all your friends are getting married, just because your parents are hassling you about getting married, just because people
I agree.
are like, are you gay?
Yeah. No, I agree that it's got to be right for you. You got to give it some heavy thought and deliberations in terms of what you want and stuff like that.
I can tell you I'm a man. I've never married. I've dated several women. I've discussed marriage. And when I say discussed, I mean got into some serious discussions with a few women. And I wasn't getting the right answers, so I wasn't getting married. And yes, that's a failure in some ways, but I would much rather fail at that step than to fail at the next step.
Yeah.
I'm not going in saying, I hope. I'm going in thinking, okay, I've covered all my bases. I've got the prenups. I've done all these checks. We've discussed these things. Now, life happens. I understand that. There's no guarantee of anything. It could still come up snake eyes. But I think it's like researching a stock, right? If you do your homework, you increase your chances of success.
Yeah, no argument. But keep in mind, you're speaking now from a 50-something-year-old guy point of view.
I
We
understand
didn't
that.
know this stuff, dude. I clearly
But
didn't
I had this view at 30. I had
at
this view at
25.
30.
Most people at 25 don't know all this. Now, if they're guided and introduced to this, then they're brought up to speed better and they're more savvy as a result. We were given no guidance, not to make excuses. We weren't. We were just left to our own devices,
Well, I've had
particularly
some
in.
guys say, "Oh, the best girls marry early," or "You can't find good girls if you wait too long." Well, that's the wrong reason to get married.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just too much of a overarching cliche blanket statement, I'm not sure how viable that is.
Yeah, if you happen to meet the right one. But
Now,
it's interesting when you look at divorce rates and you look at people who got married before 25 and after 25, or I think it might be 30. I looked, it's been a while since I looked at it, but the divorce rate is definitely lower for people who wait till they're older to get married.
I would think so. I would hope so. They're older, they're more mature, they know what they want more so. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
more
you got to
secure
give
in their careers.
yeah, you got to give people a break. I mean, who the hell knows what they want at 21 or 23 or even 25? I mean, you're just barely out of the chute, right? You
Yeah, and
know?
college isn't exactly a great experience for compared to what it used to be as far as coming up with answers or solutions. Now it's just a prerequisite.
I totally agree. It's a checklist. It's a checkbox now, and it's a freaking expensive racket, is what it is for the most part. Unless you're going in highly specialized to be a CPA, a lawyer, an engineer, whatever,
Like everything else in
doctor.
this country, it's all a racket.
Yeah, a lot of things are now racketized. Everything's about the almighty dollar. Period. Driving revenue, drive revenue, and that's how the colleges look at it. The colleges now are run like freaking corporations, which is ridiculous. It's like, look, dude, if you want to operate like the Wolf of Wall Street and brag about the revenue and your net income and all that, then go work on freaking Wall Street. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying colleges, higher institutions shouldn't be profitable, but they're at a point where, like I said, they run it like they're running a corporation.
Well, my buddy who I talked to today, he's like, Dave, it's so unbearable now. He goes, the only way I get any peace or happiness is when I'm out of the house. He goes, at home, it's happy wife, happy life. All he says is yes, dear, yes, dear. That's all he says, just to keep everything peaceful. But
Well,
that's
things have
not living to
changed.
me.
No, it's not. No, it's not because and some women realize this, by the way. Some women themselves say they've been handed a bag of junk over the last 40 years. That when all this stuff came out, it sounded real good. Um, but some women are starting to rethink this and step back
And
from
I
it.
want to be clear. I am not anti-woman at all. I love women.
No, absolutely.
And I love strong women. My mother was an extremely strong, independent woman. My sisters are well, I don't know if they could be stronger than my mother, but
Mm,
they're both very strong-willed, independent,
absolutely.
just everything
Yeah.
positive to say about them.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's the type of woman that I like because now I don't feel as though I have to, listen, try holding a book for 5 minutes. See how
Yeah.
long you can hold up the book. And it's the same thing. If you have to carry everything, you tire. I know my limitations. I could not carry an entire household for an entire lifetime. I would need to have a partner who's going to come in and offer to, carry some of the weight. Otherwise, what the hell do I need them for? Sex? Really?
Well, let
Companionship?
me.
Really? What else? I mean,
Well,
if that's all they're offering, no thanks. And that's
oh,
I hate to say this, but that's what a lot of women and men offer each other in marriage. Like you said, Dan, a chance to be monogamous. Who cares? That's not a reason to get married, in my opinion.
Well, depending on your point of view, that is one of the major purposes of it. I mean, think about it. The flip side is everybody's running around, promiscuous, whoring around, whatever. Kids being created here and there and out of wedlock and blah, blah, blah. I mean, is that a good thing?
Well, me personally,
It may be fun. It may be fun in the short term, but long term for a society, is that a good thing? I'm just asking the question. I'm not judging anybody.
Dan, I think it's a very naive statement to think that married men haven't been around whoring, creating babies just because they're married. That's really
I didn't say that
statement.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. If you take your vows and your covenant seriously,
Oh, come on, man.
you don't do that. Are there some people that do that? Absolutely. I live in the real world. I get it. Of course, there's guys
just
like
because I'm
that.
single,
But there's women like that too.
Just because I'm single doesn't mean that I'm sleeping with a different girl every night. Could I? Yeah, I could. Do I want to? No, I don't. Okay.
No.
Most married men thinks that's what's going on with single guys. That's not what's happening. We're focusing on other things. I get to read. I get to expand my knowledge. I get to, work out. I get to travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I want companionship, somebody to go out to dinner with, wherever, travel with, I can do that right now. If it doesn't work out with that person, then I can invite somebody different next time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. No, marriage is not
creating babies on every corner.
Marriage is not for everybody. We said that from the get-go.
I wonder how many people, if they were actually honest, would do it again. Like go down that aisle again or say, okay, if I get a second chance, like that 10-year contract I talked about, where people are actually able to, rectify their mistake without being permanently financially disabled for the rest of their life. And, here's an interesting statistic. And I understand why women want careers, because the reality is for hundreds of years, when a woman married a man, they almost became like a slave, right? Men would beat them. They would abuse them. They would treat them like dogs. And what's the woman going to do? They have no recourse. They have no career. They have no income. They couldn't leave. If they have children, they're not going to be able to support children. So for many years, a woman would get divorced from a man, and the man would be fine financially, and then a woman would be living like in poverty. So there is another side of the fence for why probably a woman doesn't want to get married and have children, because there's just as much risk there.
Yeah.
We have enough people on the planet, folks. I know you think you're special. I know you think you're wonderful, but you don't need another Junior.
Well,
I mean, really, most people don't need kids, but I want them.
Well, that's your opinion. Most people don't need kids. I mean, who are you, God Almighty? Most people don't need kids.
I'm talking as far as...
I'm telling you, most people, baby.
I mean, as far as, we have 300...
Overarching. Captain Universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under the power vested in me.
Under the auspices of the Dave Galaxy.
I just meant we've got 300 and something million people. Well, I mean, look at these families who have 9 kids. I mean, do they look happy? I mean,
actually, some are actually. I know a guy I work with. He's got 6 kids.
Yep.
He's a pretty happy guy.
Yep. And I'm sure the state is very happy to support them. There's no way you can have 6 kids and not need state assistance. I knew a guy.
He's a senior vice president at a technology company.
Well, guess what? I knew a guy who was making $125,000 a year, and I think he had 8 children. And he did not make enough money to support the 8 children. He had to have state assistance.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, no, agreed. Yeah. No, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel at 125 G's with 8 kids. 2 kids, 3 kids, maybe you get by. 8 kids. No, I agree because
The
things
family
have
car was
changed.
one of those one
Yeah.
of those 10-person vans, like a
Yeah.
church
No, no.
van.
The reality is, no, no, you're right. We're not an agrarian society anymore. We haven't been for 100 years. There's no, by and large, there's no reason to have 6, 8, or 10 kids. That's why those families were doing it, because it represented a form of free labor to run the farm. But we walked away from the farms 120 years ago. So
Yep.
unless you're really wealthy and you can swing it, to have 6 kids in this day and age, I agree with you. There's really no practicality behind it.
And the
There
other thing
isn't.
is, recognize that a lot of these, and now that we're 50 years old, Dan, you probably can relate to this. We are chemically, we're different than we were when we were 20. Like the sex drive and the drive we had
Yeah.
to be with women, it
Yeah.
was insane sometimes. And so men have to realize, and probably women too, that a lot of these chemical reactions, that's just nature, man. That's nature saying, hey, this is the time to mate. This is the time to have children. And we can override that with our minds. We can
Yeah.
decide that we're not going to let our animal instincts run our life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one way to look at it. True.
So,
True. But there are people, though, taking the animal instincts out of it that
well,
look forward
yeah,
to having a
please,
family.
people, comment, please. If you're married, please. I recognize
Well, Dave,
that these are my views. This is the video that I'm on. These are my views. I'm not
Understood.
saying that my views apply to you. I'm
Just-
saying that for people out there who are questioning, like, really, this is kind of whacked.
Well,
You
just
don't have to go down that path.
No, you don't. I agree. But just keep in mind, I mean, be grateful that your parents were interested in kids, because you wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be worrying about it.
No, you wouldn't. But you never would have been given life either. So
be it.
Yeah.
I don't worry about it because I can't control it and it's irrelevant.
I'm not suggesting you worry about it. I'm just saying that if we're all a product of that, right?
Yeah. So, but we're talking about Mgtow. We're not talking about children. Mgtow does not mean you can't have children if you want children.
But it's all, in my mind, interrelated, right? It is all interrelated because you're deciding to make certain decisions or move forward or not move forward in this regard, right? And so again, I do applaud the young people now, like you said earlier, compared to like when we grew up and were being raised. I think particularly out of necessity, they really need to think about it, at a cerebral level, even more so than we did, particularly with how things are in our society and just how the world is now.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty today compared to when we were 20 years old.
Yes, I agree. And that all has to be taken into account and balanced somehow, so to speak, as opposed to just diving in, the proverbial blindly. We could dive in back then a little more blind, so to speak, because the world was different then. Now, the way the world is, you dive in, blind, so to speak, you're probably going to catch a straight right or a right cross to the kisser,
Yeah, if you expose yourself,
in more ways than one.
Yep, that's the way the world is, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation with my son that of course, I want him to have a good life and be happy. And if he meets someday a woman or a girl that, where it's good for a mutual good thing for both of them, yeah, whatever, that's great. But I've also had the conversation with him. I want him to think about it long and hard and be very careful about those types of decisions because they should not be taken lightly. They tend to be permanent in nature, like you say. And if they're not totally permanent in nature, they tend to be, depending on the situation, they literally could be concrete shoes on you. Not saying you can't get rid of the concrete shoes, but in order to get rid of them, it's a lot harder than a regular pair of shoes. You're going to need a big ass jackhammer. It's going to be a lot of work potentially if you're not careful.
Yeah, especially if you're not making big dollars.
100%. That's a factor. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
You know, Ting Ting said to me a long time ago, I'll never forget it. It's in one of the videos, but she always would say to me, she's like, men who can't provide for women should not think that they have the power to choose. And I thought it was such a powerful statement that, you know, that's basically what, I mean, I don't know about the United States anymore. I mean, I'm so out of touch, but that's how a lot of women around the world look at it, is they look at the man as the provider and
100%.
not economically. And so that's
100%.
one of the first things that they judge you on is, what do you do? You ever notice when you meet a woman now? Oh, what do you do? Anybody today? Oh, what do you do for a living? First thing they ask.
I dig ditches and I make $7 an hour. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Or it used to be like in China, if you have a tan, they discriminate you based on dark skin because they assume you work outside, and you do work in a ditch making 7 cents an hour. So they know you're not marriage material.
Well, wait a minute. If you have a nice suntan, couldn't it be the reverse? Maybe you're loaded and you could spend a lot of time out by the pool and on the beach.
Well, that's something I used to joke about in China. That's what I used to say is, in the West, tans are viewed differently than they are in.
It's
in
viewed the opposite. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another dichotomy between cultures. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And obviously, cultures play a big role in it as well. A lot of people get married because that's what their cultures required.
Absolutely.
That's what our culture used to require. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you
listen, we're going on an hour, so unless you want to wrap up with something.
No, the only thing I would say is, and we already covered it all, you know, tread lightly in that area. Don't be pressured, to Dave's point, that you have to do something for the sake thereof. And if you know unequivocally 100% that you never want a family and that you never want children, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, if you already know that, then you should also think, I would say, and even advise that then what's the purpose?
Well, let me just end on this note, Dan. Let's just go get a little real. And if you're not comfortable doing this, say it and we'll end the video. Okay. Dan was married. He got divorced and he got married again. Why didn't you choose to stay single and live a single life rather than get married again?
I thought about both. Yeah. I thought about both heavily, actually.
And for you, I think it came down to a religious thing based on what I understand.
Partly, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wanted to not only for myself, but even my kids and stuff too. I mean, I wanted to set a certain example. Now, some may not agree with it. Some may see it as erroneous or foolish.
How is that going to set an example for your children?
They'll see their dad shacking up with someone.
Who said you had to shack up with anybody? If they saw their dad happy, living the life that he wanted to live, wouldn't that be a better example?
Potentially. But with most relationships, you eventually reach a point where, you know, you want to be together and stuff like that. And so, you know, most people know, most people will admit, maybe not all, but most will admit that.
No, you see, you're falling into the traditional trap that a lot of young millennials are going to say, "Hey, Gramps, that's your paradigm. That's not my paradigm."
I'm only speaking from my point of view and what I feel inside and what I feel in my heart. That's all I can do.
Okay.
That's all I can do. And that's what I would say to them. If it doesn't feel right to you, then that's probably the answer. All you can do is look. I guess I would say is no matter what you're looking for, guys, whatever you're perplexed about, and I didn't know this when I was younger, ultimately the answer is always in you. It's always within you. You just need to be able to discern and delve within yourself. Nobody can ultimately make the answer for you. There was a movie a long time ago. I'll use this as an example. David Carradine was in it. You remember the show
Fu?
Kung Fu?
Mhm.
Yeah. The name of the movie was called, and I actually recommend this if you want to watch an interesting movie. I think it was made in the 70s. It was called Circle of Iron. Circle of Iron. And real quick, without diatribing too much, what it was about was this guy. He was like sort of an action figure in a way where he had to take on all these challenges, like 5, 6, 7 challenges, and he had to fight to get to the next level. And what he was doing ultimately was trying to get to the book of knowledge. Okay. And he had to fight his way to get there. And at the end of the movie, when he finally made it to the book of knowledge, no other person had made it that far before. He got up to the book and he was like, the book of knowledge, and he's up there with bated
Probably
breath.
empty.
And
It's blank.
he grabs the book. He opens the book up. And what do you think he saw?
Blank pages.
No. Good guess, though. A mirror.
A mirror.
So he opened the book up and there was a mirror and his face was there. That was the answer. That was the movie's way and the book's way of saying the answer is in you. The answer is always in you. You just may not know it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people sell themselves short, no doubt about it. How many times do we say, oh, well, the professionals are doing this, maybe we should do it, and when we were right to begin with, right?
I'm guilty.
How many times have we talked about that on certain trades that we closed up because we thought we were wrong and we were right?
You know
It
which one
cost
comes.
us.
You
I don't even want to get into that.
not
'cause
even
we'll
going to
start
go
crying.
there. Just breathe.
Yep.
Breathe. Yeah. Yeah, I'm guilty. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. In the end, if you do what you think is right, if you truly believe in your soul and your mind that you're doing the right thing, then you're doing the right thing. But still take steps to protect yourself. Like
That's prudent.
Dan, it would not have hurt you to get a prenup.
No.
Right? So doesn't mean
would
you don't
be-
love the person.
Yeah, no, it would be prudent. I would, if I was advising somebody, like a millennial, for example, I probably would suggest that. Or definitely an older
And
person the
definitely talk
second or
about
third
things
time around.
because I know people where they did these pre-marriage counselings and the priest told them, you guys shouldn't get married. And the couple laughed at the priest and the priest was right.
Yeah.
They discounted a guy. Now, granted, it's a priest. He's never been married. What the hell does he know, right? But the bottom line is he has been doing this for a while, and he's able to see couples that work together and don't work together in these exercises that are
Absolutely.
seem to be healthy or not healthy. And he was just giving his own red flag per se.
Mhm.
And that's something to be aware of. Red flags don't go away when you get married, folks. Often a woman will say, well, I'm going to change him. I'm going to turn him into what I want him to be. Wrong. What you see is what you get.
I would say pretty much, yeah. I mean, you can modify certain things here and there, but by and large, like you say, you're essentially what and who you are, I guess.
If you want to gamble, then pick Tampa Bay to go to the Super Bowl.
That's it. Yeah. Did they win this past weekend, by the way?
Oh, they trounced Green Bay just like I thought they would. I should have put money.
Awesome. So what are they? 4-2, 5-2 now? I'll check.
I think it's 4-2.
Yeah.
4-2.
Awesome. Awesome. Coolio.
But the whole point is there. I don't watch games. I don't watch the NFL. I just look at the box score. But I assume that Tom Brady will he's an old wine now, so he will get more comfortable with the team as he gets more reps with them. And so they're going to become, unless they get injured, like Gronk got into the game now. So I think that they will now become more refined and more in rhythm together. So they're going to become more dangerous as they have more games together, in my opinion.
I agree. I would agree.
So that's why they're my pick for the Super Bowl. So we're at the beginning, because that's how I viewed it. So the fact that they're 4-2 after 6 games, not great, but not bad. Not bad. Better than the Patriots at 2-4.
Are the Pats 2-4?
Yeah, they lost their last 2. Yeah.
I'm not
They
surprised.
just lost to Denver, one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I don't think what's his name.
I just watched a couple of the highlights. Their seasons are playing out exactly the way I thought they would. Both those.
Yeah,
teams.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I didn't think that acquisition for the Patriots would bear any really fruit.
No, I mean, it's I told Johnny.
Not to be critical.
I told Johnny the Patriots aren't going to be 500. And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, no, I agree.
I was like, yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, it starts at the helm with the quarterback. It just does, and I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I applaud it because, to be quite honest with you, and it talks about what you were talking about with our society in general. Is Tom Brady's been a great soldier. He's done everything they've asked him to do, and they basically couldn't wait to get him out of town.
Yeah, I mean, he was more than a proven commodity. He only brought 5 or 6 Super Bowls. I mean, in about 17 years.
5 or 6.
Was it 6?
Yeah, 6.
How many Super Bowls? 6 in like 17 years.
Yeah, but he lost 3.
Oh, well, all right. So 6 and 3 still not bad. Super Bowls, that is.
If it was Joe Montana, he'd be 9-0. If we had a real quarterback, it'd be 9-0. That's what these people were saying.
Okay, so he won a Super Bowl for the franchise basically every 3 years. He won him a Super Bowl. Not too bad. So he's the type of guy, you can call me an idiot or naive and everything else. Yep, well, you were calling me an asshole and swearing at me earlier, so we might as well continue on. You were on a roll. You're a pussy. You're an asshole. You suck. If you were here, I'd knock you out. I mean, I'm like, geez.
I'm trying to get you fired up. I mean, you're sitting there like, oh, well, I don't want to insult anybody.
Well, I don't, to be honest. I don't want to insult anybody.
We're not saying things to insult people. We're saying things the way that we see them. I'm not saying things to insult people. I just don't have time to be politically correct. Okay.
I agree. But at the same time, I don't need to, roll them over with the car either. But I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree. All right. I was just trying to have a certain level of whatever, but I don't disagree. I just forgot what I was saying though.
Yeah. You were talking about Tom Brady being a commodity.
Yeah, he's not a commodity. He was a proven commodity. I'll just leave it there. I didn't like.
There's no loyalty anymore.
I didn't like how he.
Marriage, it goes from marriage to business relationships.
You nailed it. Exactly. Loyalty is important to me. The guy was proven. You don't treat anybody like that. Okay. When they've proven themselves. Okay. They deserve the benefit of the doubt first and foremost. That's how I think. Maybe that's old school, but that's how I think. And I think loyalty is very important.
And the bottom line is,
loyalty,
let's say Tom Brady,
you don't have anything.
Let's say Tom Brady fell off the cliff and he was just terrible. I think that he's earned the right to have a year or two as a terrible player. And the franchise just rallies around him and says, okay, you're still our guy.
Yeah, I would agree too. Yeah, I would agree.
I think the fans would have accepted that.
I would have accepted it wholeheartedly. I would have been like, look,
you're not a paying fan though. You're not a season ticket holder.
No, I'm not.
But I'm saying those people who pay money, like $10,000 a year to go to these games, I still think that they would have accepted it.
I would hope so. I mean, he's a human being, He's not a machine. He's not a robot. And like I said, he delivered 6 Super Bowls. So if the guy has a bad season or two in 17 years, it's not going to totally frost my ass, right?
Yeah,
Stuff happens.
I wrote to Bob Kraft and I said to him, I said, I was raised a Patriots fan. I came out, I was raised literally a Patriots fan by my father. And I said, I just want you to know, while I still am a Patriots fan, I have discovered I'm more of a Tom Brady fan. And that's who I'm rooting for the Super Bowl this year, Tom Brady.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him too. He's a winner. I like him. I like his attitude and everything. And
he has a baby mama. Did you know that?
A baby mama?
He has a woman who he dated who has a kid out of wedlock.
Oh, yeah. I knew that. Yeah.
Bridget Moynihan.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, stuff happens. I get it.
So evil, isn't he, Dan?
No, I would.
He's going to hell.
No, I would never say, come on, don't say that. But yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, yeah, life happens, stuff happens. I get it. Happens to us all. If you live long enough, you get slapped around. When you're 25, things are still going good. You haven't, don't take this the wrong way, guys. You haven't lived long enough. You know what I mean? When you live long enough, you get slapped.
All the answers at 25.
You do. But when you live long enough, eventually you get slapped around a little bit. Life has a way of coming back at you and knocking you to the deck. The question is, will you get up? Because sooner or later, you will get knocked to the deck. I tell my kids that too. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Stuff doesn't always go as planned, guys. Sometimes the stuff hits the fan, regardless of your intentions, regardless of your level of planning and everything else, regardless of your fortitude, regardless of your intellectual capacity.
Yeah, but men can do a better job of preparing themselves financially, phically, emotionally before they get into those scenarios a lot of times.
I totally agree, but guess
That's
what?
the whole point of the Mgtow movement. Make sure you put yourself first until you're ready for those things.
Well, yeah, because from a purely practical standpoint, Dave, you're no good to anybody, or you could argue you're useless if you've not really taken care of yourself and put yourself in a position of strength, so to speak, mentally, spiritually, physically, etc.
Hence one of my favorite analogies, the oxygen mask.
Yeah.
Coming down on an airplane.
Well, yeah, that
truly
too. Yeah.
is a great analogy.
Yeah, it's a very good analogy. It's true. I mean, I can't help my kid next to me or my wife on the other side or even another passenger or whatever if I'm sitting there, gasping for air, right?
Or.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I just KO'd. I'm out cold. Dan, can you help the old lady with the gas mask? As I turn purple. No, I doubt it at that point.
I just thought of a funny Dan story.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're recording. We're still recording. Let's not go there.
I better not get into that. But
Yeah,
I've seen you in that. I've seen you passed out like that several times.
Yes, I know. I know. That's why I don't drink anymore. That's why I stopped drinking years ago.
Oh, the worst one. We were out at the harbor.
I'm a happy-go-lucky drunk. I'm not a violent drunk. When I drink, I'm the happiest guy in the world. I want to be everybody's buddy, but I also do things that I regret, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, like that's why I don't drink.
Like leaving me to sleep on the car hood because you couldn't even lean over to open the door.
Yep, that too.
Man, that was so cold.
That's why I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
Because I engage in the utmost of tomfoolery.
Boy, was that a crazy night. Woo-wee. We'll tell that story another time.
Yeah.
Wow. That was we could make a movie out of that one.
That's why I stick to fruit juice now. The other stuff gets me in trouble, man. Yeah, the other stuff gets me in big trouble,
Yeah.
Jim Beam, Wild Turkey, you name it. Nope, don't go near it. Tequila, nope. Vodka, nope. Gin and tonic, nope. Rum, nope. I don't drink anymore. Gets me in trouble.
So anyways, that's it for Mgtow. I thought it was a very interesting topic when I brought it up to you. I think it's, and we'll probably have some hate mail from this, but that's okay.
We're just talking about what we see and observe at the end of the day. We're not knocking anybody or judging people per se, but it is a climate and environment. We agree that, particularly for the younger people now and the young guys in particular, you really need to think long and hard what you want before you make these potentially life-altering moves.
One life, folks. One life.
Yeah, there's no retake. Yeah. You get one shot as far as we know. And there's no retake. Yeah.
Yep. Especially with Big Brother getting bigger.
Yes, that too.
Who knows what tests they're going to require now?
No joke. God knows what's coming down the pike in the next 3 to 5 years. It ain't going to be fun, though, in my opinion. But that's a different story and a separate discussion.
No.
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, brother.
We're going to see stuff that we couldn't even imagine, for sure.
Yep. Well, I hope, like Doug Casey says, I hope I'm watching it on a big screen and not being in the middle of it.
Right. It's like a third-party observer, right? Where it's like a movie. You could sit back and if you want to eat some popcorn or something, that's fine, but you don't want to be in the middle of it. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody have a great night. Dan, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Peace, guys.
Yep.
Coolio.